Welcome out to Tackle Trading's Election Day Halftime Show. Guys, if you haven't voted yet, get out there and do your democratic duty of voting. If you're new to the show, we cover market news, earnings. We analyze anything really relevant to the market, including breaking down our daily routine, which starts with the broad market, the market indexes, sectors, commodities, anything that's on our mind. If you're coming into Tackle Trading's halftime show, guys, go ahead there and hit the subscribe button so you can get our additional content, our glossary videos, our random videos, our special webinars. Anytime we go live or post new content, you'll get it, so you can get it first. Hit that subscribe button, and as you come in, like and share so we can get the message of Tackle Trading out there into more ears and eyes and of our amazing community. And if you are not part of Tackle Trading's pro member community, you can join the pro ranks of Tackle Trading by going over there to tackletrading.com and hitting the 15-day free trial. You can test out everything our pro member community loves about Tackle Trading, including our amazing webinars, coaches shows, our scatter reports, our education. Remember, we live by the creed of education before application. We do it right, and that's why you want to come and be a part of us, so you can be with us long term as we navigate this amazing world of the financial markets together. And with that said, let me come in and bring in my amazing crew here: Mark Justice, Noah Davidson, Tyler Craig, Cody on the back end. Let's start with Mark. Mark, how you doing today?
Listen, it's election day. When I was a kid, when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s, when in my 40s, for every day the rest of my life, this is like the Super Bowl for me. I love election night. I'm a political science junkie. I got my food prepared. Could be a long night. Could be a long week. Like,
Mark,
who
a lot of people might not know this about you, but you have a advanced degree of political science. You have a doctorate in political science.
I have done more than my share of attending class.
Yes, you have. You've studied
field of political science. So, and my specialty
what was your
is American.
Thesis on?
What?
What was your thesis on?
On why Cody Mackey is a wonderful human being.
Mine was on
You probably got a great A.
But, yeah.
No, it's election night. Listen, we all got our horse. There are not very many people that don't have a horse in the race. And so whether you are MAGA hat wearing or riding with Biden, we love you all. We're going to find out how this story unfolds. And most importantly, and we're going to talk about it over the next little bit, the market. What's the market implications on tonight's election? And that's where we're all joined as a hip.
And I think that's where I personally am most excited about over the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's not all the hoopla and circumstance and quite frankly, a circus to a certain extent of the last 2 weeks coming into the election. I love getting into the analysis post-election, what sectors, what industries, what areas of the market, are going to be impacted both positively and negatively. And so whether Trump gets that second term here tonight or riding with Biden, Mark, Biden gets an opportunity to come in and set the agenda. Regardless of what happens here as a market participant, I do geek out a little bit on diving into these policies would impact these sectors and these policies would impact these sectors. And based on these types of regulations, these sectors might be hindered a little bit. I love getting into that deep dive, and I'm excited for that content. But obviously we got a major election here today, and there are many scenarios where we won't know exactly who our president is going to be starting tomorrow. And if you guys want to get a little bit more of a deep dive into our thoughts on the election here today, Noah, myself, Cody, and Mark did a Trading Justice podcast episode yesterday where we really got into the detail of the election and talked about certain election outcomes and talked about how the market is going to perform with the election and obviously gave our predictions. And here in about 24 hours from now, guys, we're going to all look like fools because all those predictions never make any sense. So
I encourage nobody to listen to it in the lounge this morning. I kind of gave him a little preview and I said, and whatever you do, don't listen to it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we like hearing. Never listen to the Trading Justice podcast. That's what
well, not ever. Just that one.
The first half was how the election affects the market. The second half was us just talking politics. So if you don't want to hear us talk politics, just listen to the first half. If you want to hear us talk politics, come to the second half.
Listen, and in the truth,
dive into it. Listen to it, guys. We're all going to look.
We're all friends. None of us argued or anything.
We're not all friends because Emily just sent me an Coach Emily just sent me an I voted sticker, and it's had an American flag and Cowboys suck on
She sent
it.
me the
So,
same one.
She's
She
a good
sent me the
American
same
right
one.
there.
you know,
She is a good
Emily, you got to
American.
recycle your memes. You can't send the same one to
No,
me and Mark.
no. Why
No.
recycle perfect? No, Cowboys are terrible. Just
Is that at all Washington football team polling stations? Because mine didn't have any.
That is at all Washington football team polling
Man.
stations. Yes.
Why didn't have any
But,
stickers? I was upset about it.
Regardless of who wins tonight, we do have uncertainty, and we're not any clearer right now than we were yesterday. We're not any clearer than we were the day before, but the market itself is starting to front run a little bit. The market is starting to build some momentum, and it does seem to me like the market is really remembering what happened in 16 and what happened post 16 once we got a clear victor, and we're seeing a little front running action. The question I got for you guys, and I'll start with Mark, I'll go to Ty, and then I'll go to Noah here, is this front running with the analysis of, well, don't you guys remember post 16 and that run up, guys? That run up was fantastic post 16, post election 16. Is this front running too soon? I'm going to start with Mark.
Yeah, listen, and we live in the age of FOMO, where this feeling of I'm going to miss out is just overwhelming. I mean, we've seen front running occur all year ahead of earnings. I mean, in fact, we've talked about it several times about how, those days ahead of earnings, these company after company after company would get this big, massive spike ahead of it. And so this FOMO, this is essentially what the market is doing right now, or at least the computers and the traders that are joining on board is saying, hey, I'm betting on a clean election. Because, and we've talked about this in our shows recently, in our reports, Wall Street has absolutely, without doubt, said it doesn't matter who's president, it's going to be good for the market. Now, they differ on how good, right? You'll have the people come out and say, if Trump wins, that means no corporate tax cuts. And that's great for the market, and the market's going to skyrocket. If Biden wins and the Dems take the Senate, it's going to be a ton of stimulus, and that's good for the market. If the Dems win the Senate and Trump wins the presidency, well, Trump will make deals and no corporate tax cuts, and there'll be stimulus. Like, they've covered all of their bases.
Well, can I give you a scenario or a situation real quick? I read a report on CNBC today this morning that was going through the market impact on 3 different election scenarios. Okay. And this is just, and I bring this up for a couple reasons, but mainly to talk about how Wall Street thinks about things. In the first scenario, a Biden blue wave victory, which equates to Biden winning the presidency and the Democrats taking the Senate, and their projection was the market up over the next to the end of the year up about 10-12%. Okay, and they felt like industrials, energy, alternative energy plays, tech would be strong in that capacity. The second scenario was a Trump reelection with adding to the total count, which is what Noah was talking yesterday in the electoral in our election podcast. And they said in that scenario, we see the market up 15 to 17%, because that would mean no tax, no elimination of the Trump tax cuts of 17. That would mean no degree of regulations, just par for the course moving forward. And technology sector would be the biggest winner of that bunch. And then in the third scenario, which I can see both those 2 scenarios being plausible. The third scenario is the one I want to talk about because of how it indicates market mentality around how Wall Street treats these types of things. And they said in the third scenario, which would have been a contested election today, which means we're really tight on the vote count. Trump has a lead coming into election night. And then as we count the mail-in ballots, especially in states like Pennsylvania, who don't even start counting till tomorrow morning, those ballots, we could be in some degree of contested scenario where we don't know exactly who the president's going to be. But even in that scenario, this Wall Street analyst had the market up 5 to 7%. Mark, what does that tell you about the way Wall Street approaches these types of scenarios?
Listen, I read the same article, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Wall Street likes to create, and we've talked about this really, these themes, these easy to understand themes, how everything is going to be good. And that particular writer was more bullish on a Trump presidency, but still very bullish on a Biden presidency.
It was bullish all three scenarios. You know, it was just
and the one thing, and I know this guy well. He's on CNBC all the time, so I know his personality. He likes to be a little contrarian in his predictions. So that's his personality. And so he said, if it's a contested election, it even goes up. That I fundamentally disagree with, because he is a lone wolf on Wall Street. Like Torsten Slok, chief economist from Apollo Management, said today, how the markets move in the coming days depend on the clarity of the results. And, you know, I talked about this a lot in my commodities report this weekend. We talked about it on the halftime report yesterday. We talked about it on the podcast. We've talked about it on the weekend prep class. Wall Street is spooked about a contested election. And in a year where there are so many mail-in ballots, where we might not have the results and might not know how it all plays out, it is a huge potential risk. Now, if we have a clean result that's decided within a day or two, maybe tonight, maybe the next day, if the market has a sense of who's going to win, then hey, the front running, to be honest, was justified. But that's a big bet.
Okay,
that's a big bet.
Coming back to my original question, then, is this front running premature? Then, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's like running into earnings where you don't know the results. I mean,
that's a good analogy.
If you don't know the results of earnings, but you're like, I'm going to buy ahead of earnings because the earnings are going to be awesome. You don't know the results and you don't know the market reaction.
Yeah.
You know, like let's say you have, I mean, if it's clean tonight, you're going to have another update tomorrow on all this price appreciation. And all you have to do is give up on the rally that occurred before and the rally that happens overnight. That's the sacrifice. Now,
it does. And again, the scenario where we see the front running is justified is a clear victor, correct? Because I don't want to put words in your mouth
to the market.
Tyler, Noah, and Mark, clear victor tonight. Do you think the market kind of starts moving forward into the future, starts focusing on earnings? Because earnings has been fantastic, guys. Earnings reports have been fantastic. The economy is not in shambles as much as it was even 3-6 months ago. So in terms of post-election, do you think some of the market just starts thinking, okay, now that we got this in the rear view mirror, whoever wins, Biden or Trump, let's focus on corporate earnings. Let's focus on the economic analysis. And with the backstop of, you know, we're probably going to get a big stimulus regardless of who the president is, does the market just start, you know, moving forward into the future and starts, you know, putting the election and the, you know, volatility we've seen in the last couple of weeks in the rearview mirror? Tyler, what do you think?
Well, I mean, what's the counter? Of course. Yeah. You get past one catalyst, you look at the next one. I would also, though, push back a little bit on the front running narrative. Look, it depends on where you want to anchor. If you look at the chart, sure, we're up the last 2 days. You could say, hey, we're running into the election. We're still 5% off of the pivot from 3 weeks ago. So if you just ignore the last 2 days and you said, hey, the stock market sold off 5% in the last 3 weeks ahead of the election, you wouldn't be making the argument that, hey, everybody's, you know, stocks are rip roaring higher in anticipation of this. The market was losing its mind 5 days ago when the VIX ripped to 40. I think this could just be a little bit of, okay, maybe we overdid it last week. We scared the children. Let's settle back a little bit. That's more how I read this versus everybody's giddy over tonight.
So do you see this more as the market overreacted in the last couple of weeks and, you know, the buy the dip, market value coming down into support? So do you see this more just as a technical support bounce? Because there is evidence of simply an overextended technical support bounce here.
Yeah, I 100% view that. But hey, don't let the simpleton get in the way.
No, that's why you love technical analysis, right? I mean, that's why you absolutely love technical analysis, and that's why I love the discussion between you and Mark, because Mark focuses a tremendous amount on causality, whereas you're like, let's keep it simple, right? And typically the keep it simple approach is the better approach.
Well, it also goes to show that you can use the same exact market environment and one party anchors on where we were at 2 days ago and says, hey, we've rallied the last 2 days into the election. The other one anchors 3 weeks ago and says we were 5% higher. We got a little extended last week. We're popping back. And one guy says it's optimism going in. The other guy says, hey, we're 5% off the highs. Market's, a little jittery going into this. It really just depends on where you anchor.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with that. Noah, from a technical perspective, can you give me a technical breakdown on the last few days? Give me an overall breakdown from a trend pattern perspective.
Well, Mark said something yesterday that I think really rang true. He talked about this little rally starting and behaving as if it was just a regular typical support bounce, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really what I see here is we have the identifiable support zone. And we know that 3,200 zip code is a big support zone. You see the candle shrinking. So when you have that big red down to, what was that last Wednesday? And you see the small body candles, those little shrinking. You got the green candle with the long shadow. Then you got an engulfing body next day. And then you've got this, nice big momentum candle to the upside. Now it's still got it's taken out that 9-period moving average, but it's still got this support resistance zone in the 50, which is a much harder resistance neighborhood than that 9-period moving averages. And so it's got that, good momentum. Thus far, it's impartial on the volume. I mean, we're halfway through the session and we're about halfway up on typical volume. So there's not overly, there's not a big spike in volume on this move thus far. But the momentum's been impressive. And again, it's kind of filled that gap between the 9, and I think it may end up touching that 50. We'll see. But, pretty clean bottom forming. And now you kind of have that double bottom look. And who knows what the outcome of the election will be or how the market's going to follow through. But it's got to clear that 50, pop past that 20. And then I think it's got another clean shot back up to resistance. And, or if you see a lower high come in, a retesting of that support.
To the technicians out there, Noah and Tyler specifically, looking at this market rally over the last couple of days has been impressive. But it is on the backs of us going down, quite a bit, about 10% off the highs. Obviously we failed those pivots there at 3,400 just a week and a half ago. Kind of threw a monkey wrench into the technical analysis a little bit. So when you see something like this, where you come into the market with a failed pivot, you're now underneath those major resistance levels, the 20-day moving average, the 50-day moving average, that very significant whole number that's played a role many, many times in recent history, right there at 3,400. Where do you look to get a little bit more aggressive on the buying side of the equation, especially if we do see that post-election run up here, guys, where you see momentum, and even though we didn't, 2016 was a radical volatile day, and we certainly could see something like that again tonight. But from a daily chart perspective, where do you see that pivotal point on the chart where you start to unleash it a little bit to the buy side?
I'll go first. I think when you take out the MAs, you get through the middle of this range. Really, the last 2 months, the double bottom, double top type thing, it's a range. When you're on the south side of the range, it's a little tough to be optimistic. You clear some of those mid-range resistance levels, you clear the MAs. I think you feel a little more confident because you've chewed through that potential supply, and then you have one less thing to worry about. That's where I think it gets a little bit easier to make the bull case.
Where do you think, Tyler, if we do reclaim those moving averages, because I certainly agree with your analysis there, you get above the 20, you get above the 50, you get above that 3,400 level, you should see some price appreciation in the short term there. Where do you feel like a realistic target would be, in that type of analysis? Are we talking, the previous pivot there right north of 3,500? Are you talking 3,587? Are you talking even above those levels?
From a swing trading perspective, I'd be going that prior pivot, 35.
So right there, 35 and change.
Yeah.
And that, you're talking about 100, 120 points on the S&P. That's a pretty good move in the market. That's good for swing trades, no doubt about that. No, in terms of that, Tyler and myself, we're looking at that same level. Where are you looking at that pivotal point on the chart where you're saying, okay, now I feel confident post-election, obviously, to unleash it a little bit?
All right, sorry about that.
You're fine.
My headset was just beeping at me, telling me the battery was dead. 3,400 minimum. It's got to clear the 50. You got to clear 3,400. But I think the 20 is a cleaner trigger, and you've got some of that old resistance back there to consider. So I'd say, yeah, I wouldn't even consider it until it gets in. I'd like to see it closing with 3,400. And again, you can go as early as the 50, but I'd probably wait till the 20.
Yeah, I could see some consolidation there as you fight to get above those resistance areas. There's quite a bit of resistance levels there, but I do agree. I think once you get above those moving averages, I think the analysis is momentum up until those previous pivots. I really appreciate that. In the market indexes, obviously we always analyze the S&P. But the Russell 2000 specifically has had some previous momentum. It had a tremendous amount of momentum post-election 16. Can you give me a little bit of a technical read on the Russell 2000 and a little bit of the same conversation on the Russell 2000 that we had on the S&P? If we do see some, and the Russell 2000 has been relatively strong over the course of the last, the dip was not as severe, and the recover in the last 2 days at least has been a little bit more positive than the actual broad market has. Tyler, I know you love the Russell 2000. You invest a lot in those small and mid cap stocks. Where on the Russell 2000 here? Two-part questions. Where do you see that point on the chart where you're like, yeah, let's unleash it a little bit to the buy side? Second point is post-election. Do you see the Russell 2000 as a potential outperformer against some of the blue chip indexes?
I hope it outperforms. I mean, it would speak to the rotation where, or a broadening of the rally. Remember, it's been tech for so long. The NASDAQ has been lagging recently. These companies that people have been used to making money easily on, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and the rest, are now taking a back seat. I think if you want the bullish thesis to remain intact, when one sector lags, you want another one to pick up the slack. And so unless tech is going to return to its really strong ways, I think in the absence of that, yes, you would hope that money rotates into some of these more economically sensitive areas. I think it would also be indicative of more risk appetite on the street. Anytime small caps are outperforming, it's because investors are willing to take a little bit more risk. And
they're a little bit more passionate, aren't they?
They are. When you look historically and you say, what kind of market do we have when small caps are leading? The answer is a pretty healthy market, a strong market. But I mean, in terms of where I would get more optimistic, this one's a little bit trickier because you've got, you look at the last 3, 4, 5 months on the run, it's been kind of messy. Like you haven't had a lot of really clean, easy swings, but ultimately it still comes back to when resistance is broken, when you get breakouts, that's when you get more optimistic. Technically, you got to take out 1650. I think you take out the pivot high. That's the easiest level to say, look, we've broken above resistance. We're at a new 6-7 month high. We've gotten rid of all the other supply. That's where I'd be the most optimistic, 1650, I'd say.
I have a question. You said something regarding the Russell 2000, kind of beating the NASDAQ in recent analysis, and it has. My question to you, Tyler, is do you think that is because you are seeing rotation go from your blue chip indexes into the Russell 2000, or do you think that's just a lack of belief to a certain extent in the tech space specifically, given the fact that there could be regulations coming down the pike?
I don't know that I'm smart enough to be able to determine if tech is lagging because of fears of regulation and oversight, or if it's just taking a breather because it went up so stinking much.
And that's I was going to put that in the question too. Is it regulations, or is it because they had just went up so much and you see that natural rotation back into the underperformers a little bit?
No, I'll give you my best guess in following the sentiment. You've had two major banks downgrade tech to basically market perform. There is worry that if there's a Biden presidency, if Biden wins tonight, it's not that tech's bad, right? Tech's, for a 15, 20-year period, all that. But I would not expect to see overperformance in the tech in the short term. That's my read on the sentiment with the Biden win.
So a little bit of it's just because of it's ran up so much, and now the banks are saying, okay, let's go market perform because it ran up so much. Some of it is due to just some overall, mentality regarding potential regulations coming down. Regardless of scenario, I am seeing the Russell 2000 in a little bit of a different scenario than I am the market itself. And if we do start to have, aggressive stimulus conversations post-election, I would keep an eye on the index. Now, unlike the S&P where you have this broad range of neutrality, you're not looking at that on the Russell 2000. Even if you reclaim that 50-day, moving average, which is acting as resistance today, you don't have a lot of room till it gets into that major resistance. Agree or disagree, guys? I'm looking at that 1650 level, and I'm saying I don't care what happens between right now 1600 and 1650, but if the Russell 2000 breaks out of 1650, you got to be looking at this index.
Listen, yes, and that is particularly true with the Biden victory from my read of sentiment and analysis. And once again, it doesn't matter what I think, doesn't matter what you think. It matters what the powers that be that manipulate the themes think. I really believe this. You get a technical signal on 1650 with the Biden win, that's a buy. I'll go directional at that point, and I don't go directional very often.
Noah, small caps above 1650. Do you feel they outperform?
Before they outperform,
Do they? That's really the
they?
question. Do small caps outperform the major indexes at 1650 is broken?
Outperform, maybe. I don't know. I probably wouldn't expect them to outperform. I do expect them to perform.
Yeah.
And
so
I'm kind of expecting
with the market.
Yeah, with the market, and I would probably expect a run about yay big. I mean, that's about what I'd expect if you got a clean running market, because it's got
and that would put you into 1725 into that range.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Tyler, you're the small cap king. You love these small caps. Do you expect them to where's your point of let's unleash it a little bit? I'm looking at 1650. I'm not looking at those moving averages. Are you looking at the moving averages very similar to the S&P, or are you waiting for the breakout?
I'm always long anyways, but in terms of adding exposure, 1650, sure. 1650. That's the easier bet. Yep.
Awesome. Let's take a quick peek at the commodities really quickly, guys. We're starting to see a little bit of, potential buying opportunities in the precious metals. I want to take a look at gold first. No, if you don't mind, give me a nice little technical breakdown on how you see the gold market. Obviously, we talked about excuse me, we talked about this last week in the market. We talked about it yesterday in the podcast as well. With additional stimulus, especially with a Biden win and a Democratic Senate, all of us expect a big stimulus package. That gives us a little bit of a bullish mentality on gold here. I'm again, like I said last week or about a week and a half ago before we saw the market break down last Wednesday, I'm seeing this breakout of this potential trend line here, and I'm getting excited. Am I too early on this, Noah? How do you see this technically?
Well, I think it's a foregone conclusion that there's going to be stimulus, right? Regardless of who wins.
Size of the package.
It's just
the size. Well, size may matter, but I like that if you can clean this channel and break the 50 period moving average there, I have no reason I think you couldn't pull the trigger. You might wait for it to take out the 1940 resistance peak. But I love the double bottom. I like that it came in just a touch higher. And, I like that look, back it out to a weekly chart and you got just kind of that pretty little consolidation. I might have to redraw my trend line there, but it's just a nice little inside consolidation. And in what looks to me like an otherwise very bullish context. And, stimulus and printing doesn't necessarily hurt gold. So
well, and to me, guys, and one of the reasons I'm getting a little bit more excited about gold is technically I'm starting to really like that daily trend line coming down, the double bottom there that was seen or just literally late last week, kind of hold that double bottom zone. Now you're pressing up against that technical daily chart trend line on the downside that coincides right there with those moving averages as well. I'm getting excited here, guys, for gold, but it's not just it's the coupling of the technical analysis plus the causality type analysis. When you're talking about the potential stimulus and how big that potential stimulus is going to be, but it's not just that. to me, and I mentioned this the other day on the halftime show, but when the central bank changed the regulations about the loaning process of the Main Street lending program last week, I think that was a little bit of a signal to the market, because the Fed has stayed very, very, very silent in the last 6 to 8 weeks, guys. I think that literally was a signal to the market, and we're going to hear from the Fed later this week on Thursday. But I think that was a signal to the market that says, hey, listen, we've been silent. We've kind of stayed away during the election season, but we're not gone. We're still here, and we're still willing to do something if needed. I think that was just a little tiny way of getting it out there in the market again, that the Fed put is still real, and we are still willing to do something if needed. It will be interesting to see what the Fed does on Thursday to kind of further that analysis. I don't want to front run that analysis, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. Tyler, from a technical perspective, where is your, if you're not in a position on gold in any capacity, right? You've never traded it, you've never used it as a hedge, you don't understand, and you're just looking at this from a technical perspective, where do you say from a technical analysis perspective, we're buying?
The phrase that comes to mind is you want a change in character, right? So this entire time, this last 3 months or so, where gold's been chopping / trending lower, that descending trend line that Noah drew over all those peaks, I mean, it has not had the strength to change that series or that pattern of lower highs. I think once you take out overhead resistance, meaning one of those prior pivot highs, which I believe corresponds to that 50-day moving average, that then is the tell, right? Like I want you to tip your hand and tell me, when are you able to rally above levels that previously you have been unable to do so? That tells me that there's a shift in the balance of power. That tells me that maybe now is the time we get a rally that's sustainable. So that's the thought process that goes through trying to find out what that level is. And for me, I like that descending trend line Noah drew, 50 MA, maybe a couple of those prior pivot highs, 1920, 1930, whatever those levels are. I like a break over that.
So entry point number one would be a break above the 50-day moving average. That would be more aggressive. Entry point number two would be confirmation of that trend and pattern actually solidifying itself, and that would be the retracement that follows whatever that breakout leads. So we're seeing something could happen fairly quickly, guys. Keep an eye on gold. Next question.
Go ahead, Mark. I love this. Like, listen, if you got a clear win with, I mean, my favorite scenario is a DEM sweep. Because the stimulus package for gold, because the stimulus, you know, it's going to be this massive, huge number that could provide that spark for gold. You get a technical signal on that. Once again, I'm a directional player on.
You know, it is amazing. The primary reason for gold ownership is to hedge against too much printing of money, and yet now gold owners are like, print all the money you want. Do whatever you need to do.
This has been a long developing pattern.
You want to embrace modern monetary theory?
Fine.
That's fine.
Do it.
That's fine. You want to kill the dollar? That's fine. You do you, bro. It's fine. I own gold. I don't care. Gold buggers like, give me stimulus. It's okay. I make more money, but I have real money. You know, I just find it ironic more than anything else in that environment. You know, silver, on the other hand, has been a little bit more volatile. Silver is starting to set up a little bit as well, Noah. Can we take a quick peek on silver? Because we know when this metal gets moving, guys, it can move very, very aggressive, more than gold. Noah, do you see anything in this technical pattern or trend where you might get a little bit excited on silver? Because I think we're all pretty excited on gold right now, but what about silver? Do you think this can outperform, or do you just see it have too many hurdles to overcome?
Well, I like the higher low. That's probably the one thing I like the most on the chart. Let me back it out to a weekly and gain some perspective. You got inside consolidation on that. So that doesn't necessarily hurt my feelings. I think it's got to clear this double top right here and the 50 at the same time. So I think it's got to clear that 25-50 zone. And that would be a strong engulfing range. Anytime you can see a big engulfing range, like, you know, big green candles coming up. Let me see if I can draw it out for you. where you kind of see candles rising like that. That creates that kind of engulfing candlestick type scenario, where if you back it out to the weekly chart, what you'd be looking at is a big old bullish engulfing type, picture out of a consolidation. So, big run, take out the 25-50 zone. I can get on board with silver.
Tyler, what about you?
I'm already on board with silver, but I agree with everything Noah just said. I think that the chart on gold is definitely prettier, but that's been the case for quite a while. So I like it over resistance. I like it over the 50-day, and copy paste what Noah just said. I agree.
Yeah. Mark, this precious little metal silver can run when it wants to run. At what point would you be looking at this instead of gold?
I prioritize gold over silver right now.
I figured you did. I
did. Listen, I like trading silver, like when there's a clear thing, but like I'm not gonna, if I go in for a directional play or add to my investing portfolio, I'm gonna add more gold, not silver. I got nothing against.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, if the Democratic sweep tonight and a blue wave does happen tonight, which we do not know yet, I am going to be watching the precious metals like a hawk over the next year, because it's not just the stimulus that would be see a boom in this marketplace. It's also the analysis of potential infrastructure, both digital and physical infrastructure getting done as well, which would be very good for platinum, copper, palladium, silver, those industrial metals. So this is an area of the market that I think we should all focus on. Let's see what it looks like post-election, obviously, with that analysis. I like gold number one. I love the technicals on gold starting to form up here. The fundamentals and the technicals are starting to get aligned, so let's keep an eye on that. What about crude oil here? Saudi Arabia, Mark, today hinted at perhaps, hypothetically, more cuts coming down the road a little bit. What's your read?
Listen, it is one of the reasons I look to bottom feed on oil and have for years now. And I use this little joking statement that the Saudi princes have your back. Well, with the exception of a 10-day period back in March when they just decided to start a price war with Russia, that holds true. And they've learned their lesson. I really do believe that. They're like, okay, that doesn't work. We need to play this game. One of the reasons look to buy dips on oil is because of that fact. They are committed to creating price stability. That doesn't necessarily mean upward and onward and oil's going to go to $50 anytime soon. But they are committed to price stability, and it doesn't surprise me at all.
Nice. Guys, we're going to have a fairly tight show here today on election day. I know there's people that need to get out there and vote, including myself. I'm very excited, guys. I'm taking, right after the halftime show, I am taking my son, who turned 18 this year, and he's going to go vote for the first time, and he is so excited. No, I don't think he's that excited, but I'm more excited for him to participate in the political process. So we're very excited about that, guys. We do have a couple more things to cover, i.e. earnings. We have a couple of earnings reports we want to talk about. If you like this show so far, make sure to always give a nice little like, click and a like to it. Helps us get the SEO, get the word out there. So appreciate that. Hashtag Team Tackle. You guys are amazing. We love you. We do have a couple of earnings reports to talk about quickly. PayPal first and foremost, guys. PayPal obviously had some news earlier in the month, Mark, with Venmo and Bitcoin and so on. Mark, can you just update people on that news very quickly if they don't know the PayPal news?
What on the Bitcoin and so forth?
Bitcoin, Venmo.
No, I mean, they're just like, Bitcoin is starting to be incorporated into transactional processes. I mean, that's been one of the big knocks on Bitcoin for a long time is that, hey, I got Bitcoin. Where can I spend it? How can I use it? And the adoption by mainstream transaction processing legitimizes Bitcoin. It makes it more functional, more useful, other than this trading investing vehicle. So it's one of those things. I mean, it's one of those reasons, that I'm so bullish on Bitcoin over the last little while, is that you're starting to see it, and it's adding to sentiment. Now, PayPal, top of the chart, right? Really high. I mean, PayPal's not cheap. Didn't have a blow the top off. It had an okay
They weren't bad. They came in at $1.07 EPS number. The expectation was 95. So, an EPS beat that goes in line with a lot of the EPS beats we've seen in earnings so far. Revenue beat at 5.5 versus 5.4 billion. Again, a slight beat there, but that's what we've seen this quarter. 86% of companies so far have been beating EPS. 81% have been beating revenue expectations. That's above anybody's, even the most wishful, bullish, hopeful bull out there in the world. That's above whatever they were expecting. PayPal here, had a decent report, but again, in this space, it's a show me space right now, especially some of these high flyers that, post pandemic just went up and up and up and up. They didn't show. And not only did they not show, they also had a little bit of a guidance, slightly lowered guidance there. So some investors didn't like guidance. Overall neutral range. I wouldn't be too concerned as a long-term investor unless that M formation ultimately gets broken, and then that's a different form of analysis. I did want to talk about PayPal's earnings, but in a sense, I wanted to look at Bitcoin as well. If you give me a quick peek at the Bitcoin chart, Bitcoin, we've talked about Bitcoin quite a bit in recent history. I mean, we've talked about Bitcoin more in the last, 3-4 months than we've talked in the last 3 years in the halftime report. We love what it's doing technically. Tyler, you're a technical wizard here. I haven't got your take on Bitcoin from a pure technical perspective. The rest, a lot of traders are anticipating a 14,000 breakout here. Certainly, we don't want to front run here. We want to see it before anything. Do you agree with the 14,000 breakout analysis that leads to further price appreciation?
Aren't you just so mad that we don't have a dang Bitcoin ETF so we can all frolic and play with this dumb thing?
There is no reason that we do not have a Bitcoin ETF other than that there are certain individuals that make these decisions that do not want a Bitcoin ETF. It's insane at this point. There's no reason not to have a Bitcoin ETF, a legitimate Bitcoin ETF like you have with gold, GLD, or silver, SLV, or so on and so forth. I agree with that. What about the breakout, Ty?
When we say breakout of 14, I mean, this is an all-time high. This is the high on the daily. Okay, we're talking the week. All right. So yeah, what's not to like? I mean, look, this is super constructive, and this is one of the, I think, the maybe redeeming qualities of Bitcoin. If you hate it because of the volatility, what you have to love is the fact that it trades very well technically, quite frankly, because you got nothing else to go off of. I love the breakout of 14,000.
All right, agreed. Mark, anything on Bitcoin?
Listen, I am strong on record. As long as you don't, and once again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. You're like, hey, small cap breakout, this breakout. This election tonight, there are worries that it lasts more than a day, and that contested election, until that is off the table, I am giving it primary concern in my trading decisions. You take that off the table with the environment, you get a breakout there. I mean, I've been saying for a while, you're gonna have a blow off top, and the technical situation is, boy, it is really lining up with that general sentiment analysis. So
I like it. Last earnings report I want to talk about is Wayfair here. Wayfair, fairly popular company. Wayfair reports just a rock star EPS numbers, guys. We've seen this with other companies similar to Wayfair in this space. $2.30 EPS number. Expectation was 80 cents. Revenue slight beat at 3.8 billion versus the expectation of 3.7 billion. Let me give you a couple numbers though that I want you to think about for a second. 66.5% increase in revenue year over year. That is on the backs of 50% membership growth in the same time frame. Wayfair here really kind of showing the results off that support bounce of 250. Any interest in Wayfair based on these report numbers, guys? Let's start with Noah.
Oh, well, go ahead.
I don't know. I like the double bottom, which is pretty darn good looking. The weekly chart's not too shabby looking as far as that goes, closing back up above that 20-week moving average. I would probably be more like selling puts rather than going directional on it yet. I wouldn't want to get directional on it unless it started getting out above the rest of the moving averages, maybe even 300 plus.
Tyler?
I agree with that. I think it's hard to get I mean, you could take it off the double bottom with a tight stop. You can make the case that it's a decent risk reward for a longer term entry. The question is do you want it to be in a short term uptrend and more upside strength before you really do anything? I agree. No, I prefer the more conservative strategy.
I don't think there's a trade here, right? I mean, you're not trading with the double bottom when you have massive resistance levels underneath, right above that, moving averages, previous pivots, significant whole numbers. I mean, there's just a lot of resistance there. But from a fundamental perspective, you got to be interested in these numbers. And Mark, I heard Noah, you mentioned like a naked put. That would be one of those, well, yeah, I don't like the price at 275, but I like the fundamentals of the company. Give it to me at 200, give it to me at 190, give it to me at 180 or whatever, if it ever does. And if it doesn't, cash flow, right? I certainly agree with that. Mark, what about you? You said you had a little bit of interest here on Wayfair. From what perspective, shares or naked puts? I'm assuming naked puts.
I thought the earnings report was really, really decent.
It was fantastic. It was a fantastic earnings report.
I mean, I was particularly impressed. I mean, outside of the just overall numbers, the amount of the average purchase size by consumers, it was something in the 200s or something. I mean, I just really, really thought it was just a fantastic. It showed me that Wayfair is here as a legitimate stock. I mean, because there was some question. I mean, it had one of those like hyperbolic, just ridiculous run-ups from the lows, right?
Oh, and, 21 to 350. Yeah, I mean, just insane.
But it shows that it is a growth stock, and with growth stocks, you have to pay more. You don't get them cheap. You have to pay for a robust future, and so there's always that risk. But it's definitely in the legitimate growth category. It definitely looks to be establishing market share, and so. Is there a tradable signal? I think there is on the trend line when you clear the moving averages on a tradable signal. I would have no problem taking ownership, but of course I'm not doing jack and squat
a post-election.
Until the election gets done.
I think the earnings result, this company had a metric rise off the lows. I mean, just an insane type percentage gain here. And when you do that, you got to show it or it gets blasted. And I think that's the one thing Wayfair did today is they did show that a little bit of that price movement was justified. Now, completely no, but it didn't. It's an earnings report that doesn't get you off the position, and I think that's a positive for Wayfair moving forward. Do I think it's an wise investment at 275? Probably not. I like Noah's side of that. Lobbing naked puts at a lower price where you feel comfortable with it. But I do think it's a company to keep an eye on moving forward. And I think it does legitimize the price movement to a certain extent, Mark. There's no doubt about that. Guys, like I said, we're going to have a little bit of a tighter show than we usually do going past that 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Election day, obviously, people got more important things to do, i.e. vote. But I do want to have final messages here. Noah, let's start with you. Final thoughts for today.
Well, final thoughts. Hey, regardless of what happens, we're going to get through this.
We're a happy tribe, brother.
Hey, I'm an optimist. That's kind of the beautiful thing about it. I'm an optimist.
I am too.
And, go out and vote your conscience. And it doesn't matter, in my opinion, who you vote for, as long as you, firmly believe in who you vote for.
This is about you. I agree.
Yeah, it's not about me. It's about us. And we'll be fine. Maybe we may have a rest stretch ahead of us, but we'll get over it.
Listen, I do believe in the American spirit. I do. And I love the fact that we have massive turnout. I love the process of democracy. And, politics have played a major role in my life, like it's played a major role in many people's life. And, I love people participating in the political process. Whether whoever you're voting for, doesn't matter to me. Vote for Trump, vote for Biden, vote like Coach Frank. I'm voting for Kanye. That's who I try. I don't care. Now we were joking around at that, but I don't care. I love the participation in the political process, and so I love that message. Tyler, final thoughts.
Hold on. I forgot to mention. Everybody should write in Matt's beard, because dang, if that couldn't carry an election right there.
I'm kind of like stuck in that. I'm past the point I've ever been, and so now I got to see where it goes. That's where I'm at. So we'll see where it goes. My wife hates it, by the way. Tyler.
Hey, I second the nomination for the beard. I am happy that the market's come back a little bit. It has, honestly, if we end up rallying further from here, I'm going to pound the table on that VIX spike to 40. I just think it reiterates that when the children are panicking, if you can keep your wits about you, usually better times are ahead. So I like the efficacy of that VIX signal last week. Makes me happy.
I like it. I like it. Mark, final thoughts from you.
I'm going to take the opposite side of Tyler on this one. I think there are times, and I think Tyler is right, 98 to 99% of the time when you have a VIX spike, you take advantage of that situation. And so from a probability standpoint, I get this. Listen, I just cannot help but think about the 50,000 bank articles I've read that they are spooked on a contested election. I worry about mail-in ballots. I am perfectly happy giving up a little bit of potential gains to have clarity tomorrow, to have clarity on Thursday. Then I can deploy all the margin and cash I have available. So I think this is one of those situations where clarity, because of the specific sentiment situation you're in, caution and prudence is warranted until you get clarity.
I like it. I like it. Wise words from all three of you guys. We did drop our podcast yesterday, guys. The election prediction podcast had a lot of fun. And, you know, sometimes it's not easy to talk about talk politics in America in 2020. And that truly does drive me crazy because I love politics and I love having conversations with people that, you know, see it from a different perspective and you can have growth in that and see things from their viewpoint. And so I really did appreciate Cody and Noah and Mark coming on and having an honest conversation about, you know, where we see things in the political environment and, you know, where we see things post-election on the market. I truly did enjoy it, guys. And so, you know, go out there, Trading Justice 397 out there. And my last thoughts are this, guys. My younger brother and business partner, somebody that's about as close to me as anybody, Tim Justice. You guys all know Tim. His daughter graduated from the Army yesterday, and I'm just so happy for both of them. I'm so happy for Coach Tim. He's a leader in our community. He means so much to our community. His daughter Aubrey, and there is backstory there, but his daughter Aubrey graduated from the military yesterday, and she is a medical nurse, and she's going on to the next stage of her life. So I just want to publicly say how proud of I personally am of those two. I'm proud of Aubrey, and I'm so happy for Coach Tim, and that is absolutely amazing. And no, his beard will not beat my beard in the contest.
No,
but
you've already won, Matt. We
Yeah.
loved him, but that's an listen. You know, that's my niece. That's
It's
my
a
brother.
beautiful picture.
I'm getting
I
like
just love that picture.
looking at that.
I'm
Family-
emotional about it.
It is. It's beautiful. Listen, family, whether it is your biological family or your extended family, like we have here at Tackle Trading, community, family coming together. This is what life's
Well,
about. Happy to share it with
I-
all you.
I'm a red, white, and blue type guy. I love America. I love military service. I love our military. I love what America represents to the world. And I'm just so proud of Aubrey for signing up and doing her duty to America. I love that about this country. The volunteer military service. I just love that about this country. And I'm very proud of her. So I'm so excited to see what she does the next stage of her life. Now she's going into the reserves, and I'm a proud uncle today, guys. I am a proud uncle today. With that said, guys, we are out in the halftime show today. We will be back tomorrow to break down all the craziness of tonight and start talking about post-election analysis. I am so excited for everything post-election because I think I'm like a lot of people, just so sick of the run-up. Get it over with, rip the Band-Aid off. And whoever wins, let's move forward together as true Americans, true patriots. Let's move forward together and do it the right way. Guys, we love you. Go out there and vote today.